Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your time in attending this workshop today. I really do appreciate your attendance. I know you're all super busy and there's lots of events to attend. So I hope to make this next hour worthwhile for you. I would value your feedback as well. I've timed the workshop at 45 minutes, so that should leave plenty of time to answer any specific questions you have at the end. So we're here today for Stand Out to Win, the secret to winning investors and customers. And that's what I'm going to deliver over the next 45 minutes. But just to let you know what to expect from the workshop today, it's going to not be just another talking webinar. I hope to get some interaction going and discussions going. And these two guys here sitting back with their popcorn are kind of a signal, if you like, for when there'll be some interactivity in the workshop. So no sitting back with your popcorn for this one. You just told me in the chat the sort of things that you're looking for from today's workshop, understanding more about how to stand out and win investors and customers, a bit about what investors are looking for, and hear a little bit more about my radical approach to marketing your technology company. So what I've got for you over the next 40 odd minutes are these things. First of all, we're going to be discussing some of the growing pains, why it's so difficult to build a science and technology company and get it to that level of commercial success. So we'll dig into some of the common growing pains, and then go into 3 big mistakes that I've seen in the course of my 22 odd years of experience, mistakes that founders are making too often, which limit their chances of commercial success. And importantly, I'll be providing a way of you avoiding making those mistakes. Then we'll just touch on the number one skill that investors have said is the most important thing that founders can do in order to raise their, in order to capture their attention, really. And outline as we go along a new approach to guide the growth of technology companies. So that's what we've got. I hope this is valuable for you. Just to start with a little definition, I'm not going to give a big long introduction to who I am. Hopefully you've seen a little bit about me from my LinkedIn profile, and I'll give you a little introduction to me and the company later on. But for now, I want to focus on what a technology company is. It's not just information technology, it's any product or service that involves a technological component. So it can be information technology, but it can also be physical sciences, med tech. It can be anything that is genuinely new to the market, because that's the kind of niche that I focus on. So those innovative business doing something different that hasn't been seen before. And the reason why I do this is because it's a huge challenge. We know the statistics that 9 out of 10 early stage technology companies end up in failure. And one of the reasons why this is so difficult is because not only do you have to do what everybody else does, which is start the company, get the team in place, sort out your finances, your product offer, get it to market and start marketing, but you've also got to build an offer that customers really need. I've highlighted that word there, involved, for a reason, because there's a big difference between building something that the market wants and something that can actually live without, and building something that the market really needs. So an unsolved problem in the market. And you're offering something that is a step change different from what's currently out there, or solving a problem that hasn't been solved before. And obviously to do that, you've got to, at the same time as build the company, you've got to develop and test a brand new product, a brand new offer to the market, which is very difficult because, if we get out of the way, you've got to finance its development all the way through its testing, regulatory approval, everything else, until it's ready to sell in the market. And that means that the challenge that technology founders have got ahead of them is hard, really hard. And that's why, I want to provide help to these sorts of companies. Well, let's go on a little bit. There we go. We've done that. So this is the statistic that really got me inspired to create PBM Consulting. in the fact that 9 out of 10 companies failing at an early stage is a statistic that I wanted to do something about, so that science and technology can make more of an impact in the world, not just create publications that sit on shelves and create dust. And I've spent the past 24 months or so looking at why this area of growing innovative companies is so difficult, so that I can work out how best I can help them, but also design new ways of working that change the rules of the game, because the system, I believe, is fundamentally broken. And we'll explain why by the end of this workshop. So that's why I do what I do. But why it's so hard in bringing something that's genuinely new to the market, I'm just going to take a little bit of time to go through the theory, because this is important. Because if you're developing something that's brand new to the world, from an initial idea, you've got to basically develop that idea until it's at a certain maturity level that the commercial market can look at it and see that it could work for them. It's no good if you've got something that's in the laboratory and it's held together with sticky tape and a hopeful PowerPoint presentation. That's not going to be something that an investor could pour commercial money into. It's too risky for them. So you've got to basically advance your technology through what NASA described in the 70s is the technology readiness level scale. And this basically is an attempt to describe the maturity of a technology from its initial idea, the underpinning science concepts that mean that something might be possible, down in the lower numbers, 1 to 3, to an early stage proof of concept prototype, which is, if you're a software developer, is something like a wireframe. But if you're a hardware developer, it's a proof of concept, that fly one day, that works in the laboratory under certain conditions only. And your job as a technology founder is to get your concept developed through these maturity levels until it's ready to be bought by the market, or at least invested in by those who are able to take some level of risk for new technologies, but not fund it all the way from its initial concept. So these scales apply to whether you're developing a hardware-based product or a software. They both work the same. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of them because, again, you don't need to know that. But what you do need to know is that there is funding available for startups at both ends of this spectrum. So when your product is ready to be sold in the market, is a prototype that can work at a semi-production level scale, then you're able to access commercial funding from the likes of early stage investors or commercial companies or people buying your product or service. And the commercial funding is quite sizable once you get to that level of maturity. At the other end of the scale, when you're doing the underpinning research to show that this concept might help the world and not just one company, then there is money available from government funding for basic research. But as you can see, in the middle, where you're advancing your prototype from an early stage thing, something that works in the lab, to something that an investor might see working in the real world, that level of translational funding is much, much lower than the funding that's available at either end of the spectrum. And this basically creates what we call the valley of death. And unfortunately, this is where far too many good science and technology companies go to die, because they're not able to appeal and secure the funding necessary from the commercial market to drag their concept into the market. And they've probably exhausted the sorts of funding that is available from governments and grant funders to develop a technology prototype. So there is our valley of death. Now, we're going to come back to this concept throughout the whole workshop. That's why I thought it was important to illustrate what I mean by it. That on one side of the valley of death, you've got the research and development that went into creating the concept of your new offer. On the other side, you've got the untold wealth and riches of the commercial sector. And your job as a leader of a technology company, there's you there with your briefcase, is not to just step off and fall straight into the valley of death, but to get across the valley somehow. And we're going to be going into exactly why, or an approach that works better to get across the valley of death than the current way that many technology founders do it. So that's kind of setting the scene, really. Those are the issues that many technology companies come across. And in my sort of 22 years of working at this intersection between science, business, and funding, I've come across these three big mistakes that technology companies too often make, which can really limit their commercial success. So the first one is being focused only on the money. And this can mean a lot of different things to different people. And we'll go into that in a second. If you can remember my slides. The second mistake is that they spend a lot of time selling the wrong thing. They sell the product or the firm itself and their history rather than what they should be selling, which we'll talk about later. And the third big mistake is the sin that I want to eliminate from the world, which is the approach that many founders take when trying to raise investment, which I call spraying and praying. And this is where you create a pitch deck, you create a business plan, and you send it out to all the investors that you can find on the internet and sit back and wait for the money to roll in. And unfortunately, in many instances, that doesn't happen, causing a lot of effort, a lot of stress, a lot of time, a lot of anxiety trying to attract the attention of investors. And that's the kind of the broken model and the rules of this traditional game that I really want to upset with the new ways of working that I've developed. So we're going to touch on, while I get a drink, this first one, focusing only on the money. And I've seen this happen in lots of different ways. Many technology startups can tend to live from one funding round to another, that they exist only to get the next level of funding in so they can further advance their technology offer. And this creates this mindset where the money they're looking for is the prize. So that you're going out as a technology founder, almost cap in hand to investors with your bowl looking for funding. Whereas actually the truth is completely the opposite. It's your company, it's your opportunity, it's the team you've got, it's the solution you developed. That's the prize. And when you focus on that, then you start to invite investors to come and look at the sizable investment opportunity that you've got for them, rather than this mindset of going out to get their money. It also means if you're focusing on the money that you can become quite vulnerable, that you exist to live off what the funder says the funder gets. And that means that if the funder's priorities change, you become very, very vulnerable. So you haven't created that kind of alignment with what the market really needs. You're basically just there giving the investors what they're looking for in terms of return for their money. And in doing so, with this kind of mindset that the money is the prize, that creates this kind of imbalance in power where you're giving away the power to the investors that you're hoping will call you back, rather than knowing that the actual prize is your opportunity and the team and the solution you've assembled. And you have the power then to invite certain investors to come and look at it, rather than spamming it out there to whomever might take up your email. So that's the first thing. The second mistake that founders often make is they are, quite rightly, they're deeply passionate about the technology itself, what they've created, how it works, the science behind it, the research journey that they've been through, the pedigree of their institution. That's what they're deeply passionate about. They have a passion that their offer, the solution, can solve the problem. Technically, it will work. But that's not the same passion that the investor wants to see or the customers want to see, that it can solve a problem that they've got in a way that's much better than what's currently out there. Or it can be, or that you're solving a big enough problem in a large enough market, which is growing, which are the sort of things that attract investors. And this slide here, over there, is taken from my other workshop called Beat the Odds, where it's a specialist one that focuses on fundraising, to go into more detail about what investors are actually looking for when they receive an invitation to go and look at a founder's company. And they've said in various studies and my own research over the past few years that the number one thing they're looking for is that your company offer solves a big enough problem in a big enough market that is growing. That's more important to them than the team you've got behind you, than the ability of your solution to be better than what's out there, and very much more than just a description of what the technology is, how novel it is, and how it works. Investors or customers do not need to understand how your technology works. So why tell them? So that's the second issue. Too much focus selling the wrong thing. And the third one is this real problem, the perils of the spray and pray approach to trying to secure investment. Here we go. Now, what I've worked out in the past couple of years is that the odds of actually getting your startup funded in this way, sending out a pitch deck and a business plan to an investor cold, are about 1 in 6,000. And nobody in their right mind will be playing a game and betting their entire livelihood, their life savings, all the years of work they put into developing their startup based on these rules of chances of success of 1 in 6,000. Yet that is what's happening every single day. So just to illustrate where these numbers come from, my research recently, I've spoken to an investment firm here in London who receive between 3,000 and 4,000 pitches from founders every year. How many of those do you reckon they fund? 3,000 or 4,000. It's actually, I'm in the way. Oh. They actually fund about 6. So that's where your 600 to 1 odds come from. But then you also look at the way that investors get deals done. Again, this is something that we cover in more depth in my Beat the Odds live workshop. But a pitch deck received from a founder makes up only about 10% of any investment deal done. The other 90% come from completely different areas. So when you take those 10% and the 600 to 1, that's where you get these odds of 6,000 to 1 that your pitch deck will land on an investor's desk and result in a deal. It's just unplayable odds. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but what I want to try and avoid is technology founders ending up in any of these situations, that they're running out of money before they'll secure their next funding round. I've seen a company who spent 4 years working without any income, still trying to get investment for their concept. And because if you're going on the spray and pray approach on your own, playing those odds, you might get investment if you're lucky enough, you're in the right place at the right time with the right investor. But without a different approach or spending dedicated resources, it could take you years. And that means years without income. In those years, obviously somebody else who's better funded and better organized could beat you to the punch and develop a rival solution to the problem that you're addressing. And obviously all this time and effort and energy spent on chasing investors who aren't showing any interest, can lead to a high level of stress, anxiety, burnout, and all the implications that has. But for me, the driver why I really want to help in this area is because ultimately this also means that those problems that existed in the world that the technology was designed to solve are left unaddressed. The dreams that founders had to build a unicorn, to build a successful technology company, go out the door, and that vision, those dreams are unrealized. So this is what I want to try and avoid. So we've talked through the 3 mistakes. Now let's get on to what you can actually do about them, right? So we'll return back to our valley of death, right? So here we are, we've got an early stage prototype of an offer, and we're trying to get that accelerated over the valley of death into the market. Now, in an ideal world, you would find a funder who would be able to back your technology venture all the way from its initial idea all the way forward into full market testing and deployment in the commercial world, which is the equivalent of jumping over the valley of death in one easy leap. And unfortunately, this very rarely happens unless you've got something like this, which if you're of the right sort of age, you'll recognize as the vehicle from the Batman movies, which is used by the military to fly over a a river, pulling some cables behind it so that a bridge can be built across the river. And in our tech startup world, that's the equivalent of getting, a billionaire philanthropist to back your venture all the way through all the translational funding, through the middle of the valley of death and into the market. And it does very, very rarely happen. But I don't know whether you know any Bruce Waynes in the world who can fund your venture. If not, you've got to find a different way. So what do you actually do instead if you haven't got Bruce Wayne backing your company? You start to build a bridge. And what that means really is you're starting to build a bridge across the valley of death in stages. You're building it step by step. So starting off from the starting point of having a proof of concept idea, something that will work under certain conditions, you then start to look for sources of funding that can get the technology developed to the next level, slightly more robust, more repeatable, more commercial looking prototype. And then you look around for sources of funding from various institutions, from Innovate UK, from government funding, from friends and family, wherever you can get these funds from, who will invest in the development of your concept to get it a little bit further across the valley of death. And that's typically what a lot of founders do. But it does create this wasted effort because you're building something without a reference point to what the market actually needs. So the approach that I'm advocating to not make these mistakes is to basically build a bridge, a very special type of bridge, where you're building it from both sides at the same time. So as well as looking for the next level of funding to advance your prototype to its next maturity level, you should also be trying to attract the interest of people who are on the other side of the valley in the commercial world for the potential technological solution you're developing. So practically what that looks like is you're marketing your company's solution and your company's ability to solve this big problem from one side of the valley of death, so that you can be spotted by potential customers who might form your initial markets, or from investors looking out for the next big thing, because that's what they do. That's where they get about 30% of their deals from, getting out of the office and finding startups which are on the crest of on the wave. They're sort of newer and exciting technologies in bigger and growing and attractive markets, and they're on the lookout for these all the time. So my proposed approach is that you start to basically market your technology company in a way that attracts their attention before it's even ready. And this is quite alien for a lot of technology company founders, especially if they come from academia, because they want to basically keep working on their technology until they think it's ready to launch, until it's really, they've ironed out all the kinks, and then they go, ta-da, and launch it to the world. But the market's going, hang on, we had no idea of this. They're not aware of it. So by starting to talk and engage with the market at the earliest possible stages of your company's development, you can start to build an audience of would-be buyers, so that when your technology concept is ready, you've got a beta stage group that you can test it with. People who want to talk about it, people who will be potential advocates for your brand, all these marketing concepts that it pulls upon. Also, by doing that, by standing out and marketing what your company does, and more importantly, why it does it, which we'll get to later, you can start to attract the attention of those investors who are proactively out there looking for good tech companies to invest in. So this then comes down to the question, how actually will you do this? How will you stand out? And we know that it's an incredibly competitive environment. There are, for every investment made, they'll look at typically 600 other pitches before they look at yours. There's also a lot of competition out there. There's 1,500 spin-outs currently thought to be operating in the UK alone. 40% of those are seeking investment funding right now. We know that the investment market itself is more competitive, that investors are looking to do more kind of follow-on deals than they are investing in brand new technology. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there putting out some very impressive pitch decks that you've got to compete against in a different way. So the thing that I have found from all my research over the past 2 years that is key to standing out is the ability, and this is the #1 skill that investors say that founders should master, the ability to tell a compelling story around the problem that your startup solves. So it's not just that you need to get very good at doing a slick 30-second commercial into what your company is, where it started from, all the research that you've done, where you've got to, the trials and tribulations you've been through today. It's not that. That doesn't attract the attention of anybody. What investors want to see is an engaging story of why this problem matters in the world, why you have the passion to get this problem solved, what that problem is and who it matters to, and why your team, your solution, your net offer is the best position in the whole world to take it forward. And when you've got that kind of compelling story, then you've got something that not only attracts potential new potential buyers for your product, but also attracts those sort of investors who are looking to scout the next big thing. But a story isn't just useful in that. A story can be useful in giving them a glimpse of how you're going to attract world-class talent, how you're going to grow business partnerships to put your model of scale up into place, and ultimately how you're going to appeal to customers. So this story has obviously got to be bold, and it's got to be visionary, but it's also got to be backed by data. It can't just be plucking numbers out of thin air and saying that the market is worth this and we're going to take this much with no data behind it. It's got to be focused on showing the investor why it's a good bet to place their investment in your company. Okay, so that compelling story, if it's at the moment, if it's around your company, it's based on your company history, how long you've been going, how many great customer reviews you've got, what your team looks like. The chances are that any investor has heard that a million times before, and what they want to see is what problem are you solving in the market, why it matters to you personally, so you're the best position to see this thing through, and why your company's offer is the best way of getting this problem solved amongst everything else that could be out there. So it's not an easy thing to do, but when you've mastered it, you've got the perfect elevator pitch for your company that you can use to explain in very simple layman's terms what the value of your investment opportunity is, rather than a story which basically leads them up to the point where you're saying, and now we need money to do this, because that's what everybody else does. So I want to basically teach you how to create and tell a compelling story, to use my musical puns here, because I am a drummer, that resonates with your customers or your investors. It's harmonious along with their needs, and so that enables you to stand out and be seen for the rock star that you undoubtedly are. So that's what the #1 skill is all about. So you'd expect me now to switch into some sort of sales pitch where I tell you this is what my company does and here's how you can buy it, right? Well, I'm a bit different than that. So I've told you what the skill is. I've told you the components which also go into making up that compelling story. And now I'm going to talk to you about why that actually works, so that I should provide you with enough information to go off and do it yourself. But if you can't, or you need extra help, then that's where I come in. So stories are magical. The neuroscience supports this. We're kind of hardwired into appreciating and understanding stories, probably because of our childhood. But when you tell a story correctly and you put the audience right in the heart of the story, something really quite incredible happens in our brains. Activities in the brain actually light up to show that the person is almost like experiencing the story for themselves. And that's how you get that kind of emotional response from your audience in hearing the story. It's something that they can immediately feel, that they understand why you created this company. They can understand why you have the passion for doing what you do, and a little bit about why the them playing a part in this would help this problem get solved and be a bigger part of solving this problem, whichever it is that you've chosen. Lost track there. And that's what you want. You want a story that creates a response, because if you don't get a response, you're not going to get any action from it. Now, I love this explanation. I hope you do too. The reason why we focus the story, not on what you do or even how you do it, or even whom you do it for. Good stories focus on why. Why does the company exist? Why does this idea, where does it come from? Why are you driven to see this technological solution all the way through into commercial success? And this is taken from Simon Sinek's book called Starting with Why, where he goes on to, and he's got some YouTube videos to explain exactly all of this as well, why the best companies who do the best marketing start from their why, not what they do or how they do it. So the example I'm going to give, and this is quite hard for me because I'm kind of a Google person through and through. The example I am giving of excellent branding in this area and marketing is Apple. So Apple as a company doesn't spend a lot of time telling you that, we make the iPhone, we make AirPods, we make the iPad, we make this, everything else. They don't focus on what it is they sell. They don't even focus on how they're different. They don't say, we're sleek design and user-friendly and innovative and all these sorts of other things. That's not the central core of their marketing. Where they start their marketing from is why they exist. A kind of a simple statement that says why they're different. And that statement back in the day came from Steve Jobs and was think different. And what they're doing when they say think different is that they are showing what their company is all about in a very, very simple way. So they want to attract people to their brand that think the same way about things that they do. So they've managed to build up, a following of people who want to be seen to be a different thinker. Which is probably why, when you buy an iPhone case, it's always got a big hole in the back to cut out to always show the logo, because it's a status symbol. Look at me, I'm a different thinker. I'm an innovator. Then they can go on to talk about the range of consumer-friendly, highly stylistic, well-designed, innovative products, and the brand names and the product names of the things that they sell. But they always start with their why, which is think different. So in the story development, you would need to question what your why is. What is your passion? Why are you doing this? Who cares? What's the end goal? Those are the sorts of questions that will uncover what your why is. And that should be the central component of your story. Because the aim of this is not, in a traditional, kind of, segmentation, targeting, positioning, typical marketing approach, where you segment your customers up, you target them with specific messages, and you bombard them until they convert. That's not the aim of this approach to marketing. The aim of this approach is to do business with those people who buy into the same why as you. So you're not pushing your solution or your products or what you've got, what you've got onto them. You're talking about why this actually matters. You're talking about the problem that you exist to solve, not the solution you have. And that basically starts to bring people to you, to attract customers who get your why, people who experience the problem that you're trying to solve, and people that get the reasons behind you starting your company. You will attract people to you in this way, rather than a position where you're standing and talking about the products and services that you have, how great you are, and hoping that a lot of them believe you and convert into customers. So that's the underpinning approach and why it works. We've gone through the details of the story. The only thing I can do is to wrap that up really and tell you that what should be in your story are these kind of three things. Why is this a big enough problem to solve in the first place? Why it matters and to whom it matters. Second is to show that you've got the passion as the founding team to see this through, because ultimately when you're going for investment, the investor is looking at you as a person and a team to invest in. Do you have the endurance, the tenacity, the dogged resilience you're going to need to see this journey to commercial success through its various twists and turns? And do you have the passion for getting the problem solved? Not just the passion that your thing will work, because anyone who's invented something has that, but the passion that your solution will provide the answer to solving this problem. And the third thing you've got to try and encapsulate in the story is why your approach, your team, your proposition is the best approach in the world. Because that's what you've got to do. You've got to compete globally with these. Why your approach is better than all the others that are out there. That's what needs to go into your story. So there you go. That's me teaching you the number one skill. But now it is a little time for me, it's approaching the end of the workshop, just to tell you a little bit about myself and what I offer, just so that if that's of use to you and you want some help in implementing what I've taught today, then you know where I am and what I do. So my overall approach to consulting is helping technology founders make a safe journey to their next funding destination. So using the analogy of a flight, my first offer is to try and undertake the pre-flight checks that any pilot would have to take before taking off. Is the vessel that they are in fit to fly? Will it make the journey to their next destination? What have they got right now that can be crafted into, as an output from this work, that compelling story that can be used to underpin all of your marketing efforts and help you establish a position where you can market yourself to the world to attract investors and customers to you. My next stage offer is the planning that goes into what development, what things will you need to do in order to safely arrive and get to your destination. If it's getting substantial amounts of seed funding from an institutional investor, do you have the kind of sales revenue that they're looking for? Do you have the validation from customers that your approach, your business plan, your concept works for them? Do you have the team and the methods to get your product to the market at scale? So the plan, the flight plan, basically is a detailed plan of the things that you will need to do in order to safely arrive at your destination and receive the funding you're going for, whether that's grant, whether it's crowdfunding, whether it's seed funding, angel investment, or Series A funding. Those are the next destinations that I help companies plan for. And then normally, that's where I kind of stop working with companies and hand the implementation plan over to the company for them to implement. But if they do need specific help, they may not have all the people they need on their team, for example, to build a sales plan and a sales playbook and onboard new salespeople, or need help with coding or branding or marketing, then I work with a network of trusted people that can come in and help if the company needs it. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of what I do. Again, I wouldn't be true to my my teachings of the last sort of 20 minutes or so if I didn't start with my own personal why, which is this passion I have for getting science into creating real world impact and helping empower technology companies to their next funding destination. That's why I do what I do. And as you may have seen, if you've engaged with me on LinkedIn, I give away a lot of information for free, like I have done today, through my social feeds, because I believe that if anyone can take the information and knowledge that I have built up over these 22 odd years and use it for their own benefit, then great, that's another successful company out there. But if they want help, then they know where I am. Looking at the time, I don't intend to go through this in detail. There's me against the bigger version of me, rather strange. But the only thing I think I want to tell you from here that I haven't mentioned on so far is that at an early stage, companies typically have very little levels of cash. So I tend to work with them over the funding journey to see if there are areas of small amounts of funding that can help pay for my services and do these kind of short, sharp, impactful interventions that get results. Because I'm a founder myself, been going for less than 2 years on my own. And if I don't get results from my clients, then I've got nothing to market myself about. So I'm only going to be working with those clients who we both have the belief that I can really help them get the results they're looking for. So, turning that off now, that's enough about me. As I've said, if you want to engage investors, put them at the heart of your story. If you want to engage customers, develop a story for them, something that is easy for them to understand and gets that emotional response. The next tip is when you're talking about your story or your company on social media, target the content that is the kind of the meeting point between you and your customers. And what I mean by this is if you're a brand new company with a brand new offer, chances are the world doesn't know much about you. The only thing that connects you to your potential would-be customers or investors is the problem. So when you focus your content and what you're talking about as a way of showing that you understand the problems that your target audience is facing, you're actually the stats say that you're actually accessing more like 70% of the total market of people who could ever be interested in your product or service. If you talk only about your solution, we've got this thing and it's cheaper and better and faster than others, then you're only talking to 6% of people who've already identified that they've got a problem. They've identified the outcome they want from having that problem solved. They've looked at the options available to get that, and they've decided that your type of offer, whether it's a product or a service, is what they want to do. And they're actively out there in the market, engaging and looking and comparing suppliers to suppliers. That's only 6% of the market. And you think about how many companies you see on LinkedIn advertising themselves in that way. We've got this great thing. Here's our customer reviews. We've been going for 20 years. This is why it's better than our competitors. All of that effort spent on engaging only 6% of their potential audience. So that's why, and this approach comes from an organization I have to give a shout out to called Maverick, spelled strangely because they've trademarked it. And they are basically experts in social selling. So if you want free webinars on how to get your brand out there, how to position yourself for lead generation and sales on using the major social media channels, I definitely recommend you to go and check them out. It's all free and it definitely works. If you have to look at their client results to show how many millions of sales they've got as a result of people following their methodology. So that's why my approach works. What I've talked about for free. You may have seen on social media, I share regularly one of my clients based in Tunisia who took my methodology to stand out, to attract attention from the market. And the case study there shows exactly what they did with it, which was it was used to give them access to a global telecoms company, which gave them immediate access to a customer base of over 2 million customers, and also put them right in the heart of the company's corporate investment accelerator. So they're lined up to receive future funding as well. So I know it works. They know it works. And the only thing now I want to share with you is kind of my advice to you as technology founders, freely given. Number one, stop the spraying and praying. It doesn't do you any good. The odds are unplayable. And there are far better ways of engaging investors, again, which I talk about in my Beat the Odds workshop. You should have a go, even if it's on your own, developing a compelling story, analyzing, refining and iterating, improving on your story so that it's the most perfect elevator pitch of what you've got right now, talking about those three things we focused on before. My third tip is don't build a bridge just on one side of the valley. Make sure that you're engaging with the potential market as early as you possibly can, even if you have nothing. You see digital technology companies do this all the time. They've got an idea for solving a problem, so they put out a little bit of marketing or a landing page talking about the problem and asking people to get signed up if they have an interest in this problem being solved. And what they're doing then is not only raising awareness of their brand and doing the marketing to stand out, but they're also building up a potential audience base of would-be customers. And when they do have something that's kind of a prototype to test, they've got a willing market of people that can give them feedback. And if those people love it, they're probably where the initial brand advocates and ambassadors for your company will come from. So it's never too early to start talking with the customers about their issues, their problems, what other solutions are out there. Not trying to pitch them, you know, we've got this thing, what do you think? Because that's not customer validation. That's just people being nice to you. Start to engage with customers, understand their problem to help you position your offer in the best way to solve it. Number 4, change the way you approach investment. I've developed a free approach called Driven. I now teach it in a training course for those who want to implement it. You know, I have step-by-step support to do that, so that you're not wasting your time playing odds of 6,000 to 1. When you're marketing your company, as I've said, talk about the problem that you're solving. Don't focus on your solution or your research history. That's even worse. Build that audience of willing buyers. And again, start to then proactively engage with prospects that fit the target profile, the sorts of customers or investors you're looking for. Using LinkedIn is probably the easiest and free way of doing it, but other social media channels as well. So those are my takeaways. Not doing too bad on time. I always leave these workshops where I will follow up with an email to thank you for attending, but also to provide some free resources for you, all of which are on there. And it'll be a link to a folder where you can look at those resources, see some free videos, and get some practical templates and things that you can use right away. Again, all for free. And if you get stuck with any of them, then you know where I am. So thank you again for attending. That's my link if you do want to have a chat with me about what you've heard today. But we're now 10 minutes or so from the end. So I will just stop talking finally and see if there are any questions that you want answered.